Hello, Grand Rapids. This is City Manager Mark Washington. I am here at 1120 Monroe at our Development Center and on the second floor, standing in the community room, which houses meetings for our Planning Commission, our Board of Zoning Appeals, as well as our Historic Commission. And with me today is Layla Aslani. She is one of the project managers that works for the Planning Department under Director Turkelson's leadership. And one of the most important projects she's working on now is the Community Master Plan. In my hands, I have a copy of the 2002 Community Master Plan. That was the last time the City of Grand Rapids developed it. And we are on a journey now to update our master plan, and it is our roadmap for the next 20, 30 years. And Layla's going to tell us why it's important for us to have an updated community master plan.
Yes, thank you for having me. A community master plan is the blueprint for how a community grows and develops. Like you said, the last one was done in 2002, and they typically last about 20 years, so it is time for a new one. The community master plan primarily focuses on the physical development of the city, the built environment, but there are also opportunities to address topical concerns.
So Layla, this is the committee has been appointed by Mayor Bliss, a very diverse committee of over 50 people that's participating on the committee. And we shared a timeline for the public and the committee. You want to walk us through some of the major components of the timeline on how the process works?
Sure. So we're currently in the pre-planning phase. We hosted some master plan facilitators to go out into the community. There were 20 community members, and they went out and reviewed the 2002 plan to figure out what's working, what's not working, and what needs to change. And from that work, we found that residents want a focus on housing, equity, transportation, climate change, adaptation and mitigation, and environmental health and justice.
So even though we anticipated some of the change of demographics and these issues both in the 2002 master plan and amendments that happened later on, what we're hearing now from community is they want just as much emphasis on issues that affect the built environment but are not actually physical, maybe more social, around behavior around climate change and equity outcomes to be accounted for in this process.
Exactly. The next thing that we're doing is writing a request for proposals and releasing that to hire a consultant team to help us develop this plan. And the pre-planning phase is almost over. It'll be over early next year, and then we're going to be moving into the community input phase, and that's going to have a lot of opportunities for public engagement. We're going to be hosting a lot of different meetings, going to different events, doing online engagement as well. We're going to try a bunch of different methods because we know that one method doesn't work for everybody, and we hope to gather a lot of input on those themes that have already been identified and hopefully get other themes identified as well and ideas, and then we'll move into the adoption phase in 2024.
So one step at a time. The first step is after forming a committee, I think hiring a consultant that has experience in seeing how communities have been developed and assistance plans across the country, and it's very important. So I hope that we get a lot of good proposals. We funded this work in our 2021 and 2022 budget, as well as we plan to continue to fund it over the next couple of years. This work will probably cost us about $1 million once the total planning effort is completed. And the reason why it's so important is because this is the roadmap for the next 20, 30 years. If you'll just look at the chart that's been developed that shows some of the outcomes from the 2002 master plan, I see lots of things that resulted in development, over $4 billion in commercial construction since the 2002 master plan. The 6 corridor improvement authorities were formed since 2002. The Silver Line and the Laker Line were built since then, and lots of environmental enhancements with over 3 million gallons of stormwater infiltrated, and just growth throughout our city, and much of that was planned. The growth on the medical mile and some of the adaptive reuses of the historical structures that we have within the city. So all of this doesn't happen by chance for intentional growing urban communities. It has to be planned, and so that's the reason why we appreciate the work of your department, and we look forward to the community really being engaged in this process. Layla, why don't you tell us some of the housing development that's occurred since 2002?
Yes, so we've been tracking it since 2011, and we've had over 5,400 housing units built, but we know from work that we've done since then that we need to add more units. So this plan will really help figure out where do they go and what do they look like.
Right. And we know specifically over the next 5 years, we need to add almost double that amount of 9,000 units here in Grand Rapids to make sure that we have enough housing supply. And so this is why we have to continue to focus on improving our planning efforts for our community, and we appreciate the work that you and the department's doing.
Thank you.
This past week, the City Commission spent over half a day discussing some of the priorities for fiscal year 22 and 23 as we begin our planning for the upcoming budget process. We discussed the use of the federal relief funds that we received through the American Rescue Plan. We also discussed some of their near-term priorities around the environment, public safety, housing, mobility, as well as economic development. Lots of discussion around some of the future needs of our city to include crime prevention as well. Speaking of crime prevention, we appreciate the partnership with the Urban League and the Office of Public Accountability, and as well as the Police Department for helping us launch the Cure Violence Initiative, which is a non-traditional violence reduction program where we have non-uniform residents who act as violence interrupters in our community. And the Urban League has been our lead partner to do this. We appreciate the work of Spectrum Health in support of this work, and the community had an opportunity to meet some of the new employees that have been hired to begin working in parts of our city to reduce the episode of violence, particularly gun violence. We also continued our partnership with Mel Trotter and Guiding Light in expanding our winter sheltering opportunities. We recognized last year that there were some people who, because of the pandemic, wanted additional space to shelter in our unhoused community. And we worked with Mel Trotter to identify a property to create overflow shelter for this winter. So I appreciate the work of our community partners as well as the Community Development Department under the leadership of Ms. Bohach. We appreciate the City Commission for approving $300,000 to expand the winter shelters, but we also are piloting a new program that will allow the unhoused community to have locker space outside of the sheltering environment, so that those who are concerned about going into shelters because they have too much personal property, they'll have additional places to secure those, as well as during the daytime as they look for jobs and other housing, they can have a place where their belongings are secured. We also exempted certain public parks from social zones because of certain requirements that the MLCC has instituted, and Anabawan, Calder, DeVos Place, as well as Rosa Parks will no longer be within our social districts. And so therefore you won't be able to carry alcoholic beverages in those districts unless there is a permitted event activity that's going on there. The City Commission also approved the expansion of covered bus shelters. We previously entered an agreement with the Rapid to have 35 covered bus shelters, but now we've expanded that to 43. So we appreciate the work that's going to help people get around our community, have alternate transportation. It's good for the environment, it's good for affordability, and we appreciate the partnership with the Rapid. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next month. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans, and I hope that you enjoy the upcoming holiday season. It's the most wonderful time of the year. See you then.